We begin our introduction with the basic question, why do countries trade with each other? Not every country can produce all goods and services required by its residents because of the fact that resource endowments of countries are not in line with the needs of the country. Differences in resource endowments of the countries creates the need for foreign trade, which causes differences in relative prices. International trade helps the nation to gain from trade. The gains from international trade can be categorized as first, gains from international exchange, and second, gains from specialization. After studying this module, you shall be able to understand the production possibility frontier, the transformation curve, understand the concept of opportunity cost, relative commodity prices, demand, production, and consumption equilibriums, understand the concept of gains from trade and staple theory of trade. We now begin with production possibility frontier or the transformation curve. In order to explain this, we make certain assumptions. First, resources are fixed. Second, technology is given. There is no change in technique. And third, nations can produce only two goods. PPC or production possibility frontier shows all those combinations of two goods which the nation can produce by most efficiently and fully utilizing all its resources or factors of production. The curve shows the frontier beyond which production cannot be carried out on resources and technology that is already available to the country. The figure shows the production possibility frontier of the nation 1 with the resources available to it. The country can produce OA amounts of cloth and OB amounts of wheat, or it can produce combinations of wheat and cloth if resources are used for production of both the goods. Suppose the country chooses to produce the combination given by point E, then it is producing ON amounts of wheat and OS amounts of cloth. If it reduces the output of cloth by EL units, it can increase the output of wheat by H units. A point R represents the combination of ON units of wheat and OF units of cloth. The nation is not fully utilizing its resources without decreasing the production of wheat, and production of cloth can be increased because unutilized resources are still available. Similarly, without decreasing the production of cloth, production of wheat can be restored. Using the unutilized resources, the nation can increase the production of both the goods. Production at point Q cannot take place. Resources are not available to produce the combination that is shown by point Q. We now go on to the concept of opportunity cost. When we move from point E to point F on the transformation curve in the figure, production of cloth is reduced by EH to increase the production of wheat by HF units. EH amounts of cloth is the cost of producing HF amounts of additional quantity of wheat. In order to produce an additional unit of wheat, the nation will have to reduce the production of cloth by such an amount so that resources become available in sufficient quantity to produce additional units of wheat. This cost of production of an additional unit of wheat is written as change in quantity of cloth upon change in quantity of wheat. In the figure, cloth is measured on the y-axis, wheat is measured on the x-axis, and this can be written as change in y upon change in x. If the increase in wheat is 1 unit, then change in y by change in x is equal to the change in y. This change in y is the opportunity cost of producing 1 unit of wheat. The opportunity cost of wheat is expressed in terms of cloth. In the figure, production possibility frontier is like a straight line. Change in y by change in x is constant everywhere on this line. Change in y by change in x is also known as the slope of production possibility frontier. The slope of straight line is obviously constant, therefore opportunity cost is also constant. In order to produce an additional unit of x, change in y units of cloth are required to reduce. This ratio of change in y upon change in x is also known as MRTXY, that is the marginal rate of transformation between x and y. Since the slope of production frontier is constant, the curve shows opportunity cost, which is constant. In real life, nations are facing increasing opportunity cost instead of constant. This means the country must give up more and more of commodity to release enough resources for the production of other commodity. Increasing opportunity cost gives us a production possibility curve which is concave to the origin. In the figure, production possibility curve is AB. Suppose now that the economy is producing OA units of Y and 0 units of X. If the economy changes production from point A to point C, it gives up AY 5 units of Y and production of X increases by OXI. If the economy decides to reduce the production to point D, the production of Y decreases by Y4, Y5, but production of X increases by HD only. HD is less than Y5C. Although the nation has reduced the output of Y by the same amount as was done earlier, the output of X has increased by a very small amount. This means larger and larger quantity of good Y is required to be reduced in order to produce an additional unit of X. This is shown by points D, E, F and G on the production possibility curve. The curve shows that if nations decrease the output of Y by the same amount every time, the output of X increases at a decreasing rate. This means that the opportunity cost of X is increasing. As we now move from point A to point B along the PPC, the production of the curve is increasing, which shows increasing opportunity cost of X. If we draw tangents at different points on the PPC, the tangent becomes steeper and steeper. That is, MRT goes on increasing. There are many reasons for increasing opportunity cost or rising MRT. First, factors of production are not homogeneous. All units of factors are not identical, they are not of the same quality. Some units of labor are more efficient in production of commodity X than in the production of commodity Y. Second reason, resources are not used in the same proportion for both the goods. As a result, nations need to give up more and more of one commodity to produce an additional unit of the other commodity. The third reason is the quantity of some resources may be fixed in each sector. For example, the quantity of capital. This results in decreasing returns to the variable factor. And the last reason is that there are many decreasing returns to scale in one or both the sectors. We now introduce the relative commodity prices concept. The other concept that needs explanation is this relative prices for the commodities. Relative prices means rate of change between two goods, which means Px upon Py, that is the ratio of price of x to the price of y. If price of x is rupees 10 per kg and price of y is rupees 20 per kg, then Px by Py becomes 10 by 20 or 1 by 2. This means that half unit of y is equal to 1 unit of x. In other words, 1 unit of x will exchange for half units of y in the market. Px by Py gives the relative price of x in terms of y. The slope of line AB shows the relative price of x. Line AB of figure shows a lower relative price of x. When comparing the relative prices of commodities in two countries, the country in which relative price of a commodity is lower, the lower the relative price depicts the comparative advantage of the country in production of that commodity. There is another way of interpreting and finding the importance of relative prices. The slope of line AB, which can be treated as a budget line or price line, shows the relative price of X when there is perfect competition in domestic market and firms maximize their profits. The economy will maximize its national product measured in real terms, and production will be determined uniquely by the relative prices. Let us choose a set of price arbitrarily and show how these determine the output of each commodity. In the figure, we have the production possibility curve PP and the price line as AB. The slope of AB shows the relative price of X, and the slope of price line Px by Py, the slope of production possibility frontier PP, is equal to E, where Px by Py is equal to MRT and is equal to change in Y by change in X. A competitive economy will produce at point E, and by doing this, it will maximize its national output. The value of national product is given by Qxpx plus Qypy, where Qx is a quantity of X, Qy is the quantity of Y, Px is the price of X, and Py is the price of Y. Divide both sides of equation 1 by Py. Value of national output upon Py is equal to Qxpx upon Py plus Qy, or national product measured in terms of Y is equal to Qy plus Qxpx upon Py. Output of Y plus output of X multiplied by relative price of X. The relative price of X is expressed in terms of units of Y. It shows the number of units of Y which are needed to purchase 1 unit of X. In order to show that production at point E maximizes the national output, the following figure is taken. Suppose the production takes place at point F and not at point E. The transformation curve is PP and the price line being AB. Since production takes place at point F, we draw a line which is parallel to AB through point F. This line is CD. If the economy produces at F, then it is not maximizing the national output, since OD is less than OB and OC is less than OA. At point F, the slope of line CD, or relative price of X, is steeper than the slope of transformation curve PP. At point F, the opportunity cost of X is lower than the relative price of X. It will therefore be profitable for the firms to increase production of X and reduce the production of Y. By doing so, the economy eventually reaches point E, where the relative price of X is equal to the opportunity cost of X. The national product will be equal to OA. The national product is maximized when Px by Py is equal to change in Y by change in X, and that is equal to MRT between X and Y. From this discussion, it becomes very clear that the price line, when it is tangent to the production possibility curve, can also be interpreted as the budget line of the nation. We now discuss the concept of demand. This is another concept that needs discussion in demand conditions. Demand in the country of two goods can be described with the help of a community indifference curves are built from individual indifference curves to show how individuals rank various collections of goods. In the figure, community has OB of real income measured in terms of X, and relative price of X is measured by the slope of AB. Consumers can buy any combination of X and Y that lies on A, B, C. Consumers will choose point in E on indifference curve IC2. It lies on the highest indifference curve. When the constraint is depicted by AB, the line AB shows two constraints. First, the income that the consumer can spend, and second, prices at which they can buy the two goods. Therefore, we say that demand for two commodities is shown by point E, where MRS between X and Y is equal to Px upon Py. We now discuss production and consumption equilibrium together. In a closed economy, the equilibrium occurs when two markets clear. It is at a point E in figures. There are features of equilibrium which need attention. First, point E can be located without knowing relative prices of X in case of a closed economy. When firms are maximizing profit and consumers are maximizing satisfaction, equilibrium is established at a point where production possibility curve and indifference curves is tangent to each other. At point MRS_XY is equal to MRT_XY, equilibrium requires that this would happen when Px by Py adjust accordingly. It is a point where demand and supply of every commodity is equated. Gains from trade. Given this background, now we are in a position to describe the gains from trade. International trade leads to realization of two gains. First, gains from exchange, and second, gains from specialization after the introduction of trade welfare of the economy increases due to more favorable terms of trade and because of greater specialization. This can be shown by figure. A country produces and consumes at point A before trade. As world prices change to P2, points of consumption and production change to point C and point B respectively. A country gains therefore at point B, production of X increases and is well off also since point C corresponds to higher IC. We have shown that gains from trade are reaped by a country in the form of increase in welfare. Trade benefits both the trading partners. Trade leads to increase in relative price of goods, which is low in each country. We can make it explicit by using an example. Suppose there are two countries A and B, and the two countries produce two goods, X and Y. Country A is more efficient in production of X and country B is more efficient in production of Y. This is due to resource endowment, or in other words, comparative advantage. Prior to trade, relative price of X will be low in country A. In country B, relative price of Y is low. After trade, there is change in relative prices. Post-trade, relative price of X is more than the relative price of X prevailing in the country A in the pre-trade situation. Similarly, for country B, after the starting of trade, X becomes relatively cheaper. A similar argument can also be made about the relative price of Y in both the countries. Both countries reap gains from exchange and specialization. From this discussion regarding basis of trade and gains from trade, 2 points are clear. First, trade will take place only if pre-trade relative price in two countries are different. Second, after trade, incomplete specialization will occur because of increasing opportunity cost. In the post-trade period also, the countries will continue to produce both the goods. Our discussion clearly shows that gains from trade accrue to both the countries participating in trade. When the trade takes place, each country specializes in the commodity which it can produce at lower opportunity cost. This means, after trade, resources are fully utilized and more efficiently utilized to reallocate between needs of trade. The benefits of trade also occur due to the fact that now the country can utilize idle resources to meet the requirement of foreigners. These changes lead to increase in national income of a country. The gains from trade is that it leads widening of the market. In most of the less developed countries, the size of the market is extremely small. As a result, there is no incentive to investment. Trade also provides beneficial external economies. The growth of export sector due to the widening of the market helps the country to increase the size of its plant and use better techniques. The new equipment may be procured from foreign countries which can be paid by using earnings due to increase in volume of their exports. The growing export sector creates beneficial external economies for the other sectors. There is increase in demand for inputs in the export sector and also due to increase in national income. Trade acts as transmission belt for capital. Due to trade, less developed countries can gain capital which plays a significant role in economic development. Investment by foreigners in underdeveloped countries depends on the willingness of the foreigners. This is influenced by the policies followed in underdeveloped countries. Larger the volume of trade, larger will be the capital import from abroad. If volume of trade is large, transfer of interest and repayment becomes easier. It is much easier to get foreign direct investment for export industries with built-in solution for retransfer of interest and capital. Once the process of FDI starts in export sector, the opportunities in other sectors will also start appearing. Trade makes it possible for countries to borrow from abroad for capital formation. Larger the volume of trade, larger will be such capital formation. we now introduce the staple theory of trade. Trade transforms the production possibility frontier of an economy. It raises the productivity levels in the country. This means greater volume of trade. The greater is the potential for development. Staple designate a raw material or resource intensive commodity occupying a dominant position in the exports of a developing economy. The country has a comparative advantage in this commodity. Exports of such goods create substantial growth in national income and per capita income. This increases savings and investments in the developing economy. The staple commodities are exchanged for machinery, capital goods, raw material, and semi finished goods required for economic development. The larger exports enlarge the volume of imports of equipment and technical know how without creating the problems relating to BOP. Accordingly, trade provides capital, technical know how, and skills essential for economic development. Trade has a continuous effect on the economy. According to Gordon, there are 5 effects of trade on an economy. The first, impact effect of trade. This is in the form of static gains of trade due to division of labor and specialization, which leads to increase in current income. The second is capital accumulation effect. An increase in capital formation because of static gains, gains from impact effect, leads to increase in income, which leads to increase in savings and investments. Third, substitution effect, which may result from possible fall in relative price of investment goods to consumption goods if investment goods are import intensive. Fourth, income distribution effect. There may be a shift in income towards factors that are used intensively in production of exports. And the last is factor weight effect. This is weighted average of capital and labor growth rates. If export rise, then export will use the factor of production which is growing faster and the rate of growth of export will rise fastly. Trade also leads to increase in efficiency by reducing organizational dualism. As already mentioned, that trade brings in foreign capital and foreign direct investment, particularly in the export sector. Critics allege that foreign direct investment creates enclaves and promotes dualism. The fact is that every new development is initially an enclave and it takes time to have its effects on other sectors. FDI not only brings in capital and technology, it also brings with it managerial skills. Trade benefits the country by promoting competition and checking inefficient monopolies. Many economists believe that main advantage of formation of European Common Market flows from freer competition rather than merely from larger markets and large-scale production. From this discussion, it is clear that trade provides dynamic gains. These gains help in promoting development in the country, participating in foreign trade. There are some economists who doubt that the contribution of trade to development is not worthwhile. According to Mridal, trade between developed countries and developing countries impoverish the latter. Prebish argues that there has been secular deterioration in the terms of trade of developing economies. This means that gains from trade are accruing to developed economies at the expense of developing economies. The criticism is unfounded. There is no empirical evidence that the developing countries have not benefited from trade. In the end, we move on to the summary that foreign industries have acted as an engine of growth. By pursuing appropriate policies, the developing economies can also accelerate their rate of growth. Trade opportunities have benefited the developing economies by enabling them to use unexploited resources, accumulate capital, and acquire knowledge and skills required for their development.